In Chapter 3, we're going to be talking about understanding and involving the community. In the United States, each community is a part of a larger social order. Citizens have established a criminal justice system in an effort to live in peace, free from fear and crime and violence. As the gatekeepers to the community, or as to the criminal justice system itself, the police have an essential link with the public. In civilized society, people cannot simply do as they please. They're expected to conform to federal and state laws as well as the local rules and regulations. Community is defined in many ways. Community is a specific geographic area served by a police department or a law enforcement agency. It's also a social group or class having common interests. So officers must understand and they must be a part of the community. If not, they're not going to be able to fulfill their mission. We're going to talk about social capital. Social capital is defined as referring to the strengths of a community's social fabric. There's a variety of different entities that have two characteristics in common, and that's trustworthy and obligations. Now, these two levels that deals with this concept are both local and public. So at the local level, this is a bond among family members and their immediate family, the informal groups that form within the local area. Within the public, it refers to the networks tying individuals to broader community institutions such as schools and civic organizations and churches, just to name a few. Let's talk about lack of community. What happens when the community is lacking? Community implies a group of people with a common history and understanding and sense of themselves as us, and outsiders, they refer to them as them. Well, unfortunately, many communities lack this we-ness that we need. In such areas, the police and the public, they may have a them versus us type of an attitude or relationship. Areas requiring the most police attention are usually those in the fewest shared values and their limited sense of a community. When citizens are unable to maintain informal social controls, the result is social disorganization and a greater need for formal social control measures, such as the police, to come in to get things in order. All entities within a community, individuals as well as organizations and agencies, have to work together in order to keep that community healthy. Such partnerships are vital because a community cannot be healthy if unemployment and poverty are widespread, people are hungry, health care is inadequate, prejudices separate people, preschool children lack the proper care and nutrition that they need, or senior citizens are allowed to atrophy, and schools remain isolated and remote, and social services are fragmented and disproportionate. These type things you cannot form a strong community when things are isolated in that manner. We're going to continue to talk about lack of community, talking about this broken window syndrome. Social psychologists and police agree that if a window in a building is broken and if it's left unrepaired, all the rest of the windows will soon be broken if these windows are not taken care of. Now, this is true in nice neighborhoods as well as in the rundown neighborhoods. So it doesn't matter what type of neighborhood it is. If the windows are not repaired, eventually all of the windows within that community are going to be broken out. Other factors that negates this sense of community: the increasing diversity within our society can present a challenge to community policing as well. It is extremely difficult to implement community policing when the values of groups within a given area clash together. For example, controversy may exist between the gay communities as well as the Orthodox Christian or the Jewish community because of their differences in values. So this can be a problem for community policing. Communities and crime. Cracking down on crime, because in essence, this is what we want to do. We want to crack down on crime in order for the communities to be a safer place for the people to live in. And if we're not pulling together and everybody's doing their part, then we can have problems. Now, although traditional policing has most often dealt with the high crime levels by strictly enforcing the law, in other words, the get tough policies and a higher police presence, police usually have little ability to change things for the better in the long run. Cracking down on crimes often results in just displacing the crimes. In other words, they go to another area. The relocation of crime and criminals to neighborhood areas that's outside of the enforcement zone. So the community in which the crackdown occurs may be temporarily safer. However, forced by the increased police presence and the increased likelihood of arrest, criminals just move outside of their operation. So they're not really solving the problems. They're just simply displacing the problem, and we don't want this to happen. And when you're talking about the ecology of crime, this is a theory that explains how criminal opportunities are created in neighborhoods. Just like a natural ecosystem, a neighborhood can hold only a certain number of things. Well, when you add too many of these things, then the system is going to eventually collapse. You know, this is similar to the tipping point. That point at which an ordinary stable phenomenon can turn into crisis when there's too many things added to it. Now, white flight, this occurs when white families move from neighborhoods that are experiencing racial integration, or they move from cities that are experiencing school desegregation, where the different races are mixing in. The public-private policing interaction. This competition historically deals with private security agencies, and they usually actually get the short end of the stick because they're viewed as poorly trained or poorly paid individuals. However, statistics show that about 85% of critical U.S. infrastructures are actually protected by private security and not law enforcement. Privatization is using private security officers to provide services which are normally considered to be law enforcement functions. Justice system. Criminal justice system is made up of law enforcement, courts, and corrections. These all make up the criminal justice system. And there's some controversies and issues that deals with this. You know, it's related to the effectiveness of the criminal justice system. When people look at plea bargaining, they look at sentencing, rehabilitation, and all of this, they're saying it's really not working too well. And that causes problems within the system because people are not in agreement with how this is working out. Restorative justice. Well, this type of justice holds offenders accountable to the victim and the victim's community rather than to the state. So rather than seeking retribution or punishment, it seeks restitution in order to repair the damages as much as possible. In other words, they're trying to restore the victim and restore the community to where they were prior to this incident occurring. Citizen involvement in the law enforcement community. Community members have a high interest level in their local police departments and have been involved in a variety of ways for many years. I mean, we have civilian review boards, we have citizen patrol, we have citizen police academies, citizen volunteer groups. What you need to do is just take a little time to read about these various initiatives that are within this chapter of this book so that you can get a better understanding of how these groups operate and how they subsequently help in the entire community when everyone gets involved. Well, in summary, Community policing must begin with an understanding of what communities are as well as how they function. Community is both a specific geographic area that's serviced by police as well as a feeling of belonging by its citizens. Now, as far as restorative justice, this is a balanced approach to sentencing, and it involves offenders, victims, local communities, and governments in order to alleviate crime and violence. Without all of these groups coming together, then it's not going to work out too well as far as removing crime and fear of crime from our communities.